All right, guys. Sorry about that. It'll get easier once we get started on this. So let's start out. I want to go through the syllabus and what we're going to be getting into, and kind of explain how this is all going to work. This is convoluted for you as much as it is for me. So you should have this available, but I wasn't able to get a copy, so you can run a copy. But let's just run through this real quick, and then we'll get started into the stuff. So this is a new course. It's SUR 120. It's CAD and Civil 3D. So we're kind of still developing this, but it is, like its focus says, it's going to be a little bit of CAD, just stuff that some of you guys may already know, but I want to make sure everybody's up on the same page with that, because some people have only taken that one CAD class that stopped at one point to get everything in there. Okay, so the crux of this will be Civil 3D, though, so that's the big thing. So a little bit here, I'm Jim Decker. I'm going to be your instructor for those of you that don't know me. I am a full-time instructor here at the college. I've been here 30 plus years. I teach primarily in the civil engineering technology section, but I can also, we've got the new program, the SUR, so I'm kind of in both programs. And I also do some stuff for mechanical, and I also do some stuff for environmental, so I'm kind of all over the place. But my primary focus, my background is a civil engineering degree from the University of Cincinnati, and also the associate's degree from here in surveying, and I'm also a professional surveyor in the state of Ohio. My background is sort of civil. And we're gonna, like I said, I've been here 30 plus years, and in that time frame, I've been teaching a lot of the CAD and developed all that kind of stuff. So, and I've been using Civil 3D pretty extensively ever since it came out. So, I think that you'll enjoy that aspect of it and be able to get a lot out of that. I'm going to be pretty available, just so you know. So, there's going to be several ways you can contact me, besides the fact that if you know you're off campus, one way is to reach me via email or phone. Okay, so my office is still flooded out. I still can't get to my office, but that direct line there, that 5691757, will take you to my office phone. So it hooks right into my email. So if you call, I'll know that you called. Okay. So you can also give me directly email. We're also going to see each other in this class once a week. So we'll have the lecture for the lab. This is basically the lab component. Okay. So we'll see each other that way. And also on Mondays, we're going to have contact through Zoom conferencing. So so you can get a hold of me. I do have 10 scheduled office hours that everybody has, all instructors. There's my current office hours for this semester. So Mondays, right after art class from 11 to 3, and then on Tuesdays 8 to 12, and then 2 to 4. Okay. Now you can go to Starfish and schedule an appointment if you want to do that. We just can't do face-to-face appointments. There's no place to do that. But I can do a Zoom. I can do a Zoom thing, or talk on the phone, or email. Okay. I've been doing a lot of Zoom conferencing office hours stuff with people, and it works out really well. So, if you ever want to do that, just take advantage of that. Okay. So that works great. Okay. So I'm also going to be monitoring. I mean, people call me or contact me in the weekend sometimes, you know. So I can do it other times than these times. So just don't limit yourself to that, because if you have a question, I need some help, consider doing that. Just contact me, and I'll try to get back with you at some time frame, and we can do it. Okay. So the course meeting times, we're scheduled for a lecture and a lab section. The lecture is a Monday, 8 to 10:50. So this is kind of going to be our first lecture, but we're going to also do a lab because it's pretty simple material today. So that's kind of the good thing. But we'll be doing a Monday lecture, Zoom. What I'll be doing is like about 10 till 8, I'll be sending you a Zoom link. You just click on it and just come on. And I'll probably be recording the lectures too. So that way, if you do miss it, you'll be able to get it. So I'll post those recorded lectures. I'm trying to record this one today because I know some people around. I hope it's working. It's probably not the best way, but I think it will. So you might see this posted if it works. And then Wednesday should be our technical lab here. And primarily that's going to be just when you'll be able to come in and work. We're probably not going to go over a lot of material in here. It's just I'll be giving you labs to do. Then I'll be able to work with you guys one-on-one, okay? But we should be in here the remainder of the semester. The printer's not working this morning for some reason. I'll get that hooked up. So we will have printing facilities and all of that kind of stuff once everything's up and running, okay? So hopefully that works good. And you know, we're going to be dealing with this COVID thing for a while. So, you know, we have to have the masks and the COVID, you know, the social distancing and all of that. So just keep in mind when you're here on the campus, that you will have to be masked up. Okay. You too. All right. So this is a new class. We were going to run it last year. Never got a chance to do it. We just didn't have many people, and so we're deciding. So we're kind of in. You know, we're finding our way through it. But I think that you're going to get a lot out of this, hopefully. Okay. Prereqs would have been CET 115. You couldn't have gotten in this class without that. All right, so let's jump down to this information. So, as I said, we're going to be looking a little bit at AutoCAD and primarily Civil 3D. So the book that we're going to be utilizing is Exploring AutoCAD Civil 3D 2020. Shampoo, it's CAD Sim Technologies. I don't have a copy of that book. I have a copy of the 9th book. Here, it looks like this. This is a really good comprehensive book. There were a couple I looked at. It doesn't cover everything I want. Okay. I talked to these guys. They're right out of like Lafayette, Indiana, and if you go to their website, they have a place that as a student you can order this book for $43. Okay. Now I'm sure there's shipping charges, but so just go to this CAD Sim Technologies, and I can, yeah, it's cadsim.com. So if you go to that, there's a section for students. We don't need this right away. About the 5th week is when I want you to have this, okay? So just make sure you get it. This is the 9th edition because this is 2019. I mean, that would probably work, but try to get the 10th edition because we're going to be using 2020. It's a pretty decent book, like I said. It's got a lot of information. They also have a lot of practice stuff in here. Practice files that you can go down and just download. It's pretty neat the way they worked it out. So the other book I looked at was another Civil 3D book. It's by this SDC Publications. It was like twice the price. It covered more stuff, but it was really lean. I just didn't like it in terms of the content. So I think you're going to get more content out of this if you read it. Price is half. I think the content's better. Okay. The only thing I wish they had a couple more things, like they don't have anything about survey in here. They don't have some other things, so we'll see. But I think it'll work. So if you're interested in some AutoCAD stuff, though, this book is an awesome book. It's called AutoCAD 2020 Instructor by James Leach. And this is through the SDC publication. I'm not making it a text that you need to buy, but it is a really, really good comprehensive book when it comes to CAD, okay, just in general. So if you go to SDC Publications, but I know it's probably more like $78, unless you get it some other location, okay? So, like I said, get this book as, you know, when you can, and let me know if you're having troubles with it. I think they should have it down in the bookstore, too. I mean, I don't know. The price is usually higher, but you should do that. So, required student materials, I would suggest that you get some kind of portable storage device, some kind of thumb drive or something would be nice. That way you can store your stuff. And hopefully, if you take this home, you can work on it at home too. That would be my suggestion. A notebook if you want to for taking notes. And I would suggest, if you've got a computer that can handle it, downloading both AutoCAD and AutoCAD Civil 3D. They are different. I mean, you can do AutoCAD functions. You can actually make Civil 3D, have the AutoCAD palette, the work palette. But the problem is AutoCAD Civil 3D brings all these other things into it. Like when you open up a drawing in Civil 3D, you get like 50 layers, and you can't get rid of them. Okay. So there's all kinds of things that comes down into that drawing file that doesn't make it really nice when you're working with straight AutoCAD. So since we're going to be working AutoCAD for the first 5 weeks, I would just suggest either downloading it here or doing your stuff here, one of the two. Okay. Does everybody know how to get free versions of the stuff? Everybody aware of that?
Yeah, I downloaded it last semester and it said it's only good until August 21. I don't know if I did something wrong.
You got the 30, you got the wrong version. You need to get the student version because it's a 3-year release.
I thought it was a good version. Maybe you can tell me. I brought my computer.
Okay, well, you have to go out to their webpage. Did you register as a student or did you just, you did? You got it downloaded through them? Yeah, it should be a 3-year kind of thing. Yeah, so we have to look at that. Okay. Don't do 2021 then, okay? Yeah. Because the files here are not downwardly compatible. So if you open up a 2021 file and then bring it here, it won't open. Now AutoCAD's upwardly and downwardly compatible, but Civil 3D is not. Okay. But it should be a 3-year lease. Or it's not even a lease. It's a guarantee for 3 years. I mean, I'm not sure what's up with that. Well, we can take a look at it. So there's going to be labs and testing. So all this statement is saying is that in order to pass this class, you have to do both the lab and the test. So we're going to have 2 exams. So that's not a big deal. All right. Any questions on that? Okay. Grading scale, I think, is pretty standard for what most people are using at college. 90 to 100A, 80 to 89B, 70. I don't think we'll have to worry about that, hopefully. and normally, I'm not real strict on the numerics there. I look at overall performance. So if you're in an 88, 87, you're probably going to get kicked over to an A as long as I know you're here, you're trying, you're working, and that kind of stuff. Even though when I put stuff in Blackboard, it'll calculate it out to like 88.6732% kind of thing. So yeah, but I would say most people should fall in that range. Not that you're probably just not working what you need to do. Okay. So what we're going to be dealing with on this class, there's going to be 4 primary areas of grading. The AutoCAD labs are going to be 25% because that's a really smaller section. So I'm only going to do 4 AutoCAD labs starting today. Then we'll have the first test that'll deal with AutoCAD strictly. Then we're going to get into civil labs. 8 civil labs that we're going to be doing. If everything works well, that'll be 55%. Then we'll have a final test that'll be just civil 3D. Okay. So one thing about testing, exams will be taken during this time frame here. Okay, the lab. So if you do not take the lab or the test then, and you don't make arrangements with me, and you weren't going to be there, what this indicates is that you'll get a 0. As long as you let me know what's going on, that's not going to be a problem. Okay, so we don't have to worry about that typically. Okay, but just if you're going to be, if you get sick or something, and we're going to be dealing with all of that, just let me know. Just keep me in the loop. That's all I ask. Okay, this is a small class too, so that shouldn't be a problem. I got one guy called me last night, and he's taking it remotely, which he wasn't supposed to be that way. So I'm going to be working that too. So hopefully that'll work. Okay, so let's get to the crux. This is the syllabus. This is kind of our roadmap. This is what we really want to focus on. So I broke this down into AutoCAD content and Civil 3D content. This first page is showing you AutoCAD content. And so we're going to be that first 5 weeks dealing with this stuff. And some of this, like I said, for some of you, it might be review. But it's kind of nice to know this when we get into Civil 3D because it's nice to know what blocks are. It's nice to know how dimensioning works because you've never done it before. It's good to understand that. So we're going to do some very simple annotation stuff. I'm just going to talk. This should probably be reviewed for most of you, but I'll just go through this today. We're going to develop some title blocks. And we're going to talk about paper space. If you've never done paper space, that's very important. Anybody not done paper space before? Okay, so that's why we need to start out this way. That's good. Okay. So there's a lot to that. And pretty much all drawing, plotting happens to be a paper space. If you're not doing it that way, you're just doing it wrong. That's my opinion. So that's very important. And then dimensioning, we'll do some dimensioning. We'll talk about blocks. So that'll take the first 4 weeks. We'll have 4 assignments. And then that'll take us to that first test. And that test will occur on that Wednesday. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I might be wrong on that, but I think that the Monday of that section is a holiday. So we really want to have a class. I think that's President's Day or something. So we would just have that test. Okay. So that worked out pretty well when I lumped the syllabus together. So after that section, then we're going to migrate over into the Civil 3D piece. Okay, so this is the Civil 3D content, and that's broken down into the next 15 weeks. So we'll start out with week 6, getting into the introduction of Civil 3D, talking about workspaces, features, user settings. Probably won't do any kind of lab here, but this will be chapter 1 out of that Exploring Civil 3D book. So then we're going to go into lines and curve and labeling kind of issues with Civil 3D. Talk about that. Notice there's no specific chapter in the book. It doesn't, see, this is an area where I had a section. Like if I wrote that book, I'd have one on that. It doesn't have that. I thought it's got it in there, but it's kind of in different sections. So then we're going to do points, which is really important in Civil 3D. So we'll have a lab here. That'll be lab 5 and lab 6 here when we deal with the points of the lines. There is a full chapter on chapter 2 there. We'll talk about that. Survey commands. Has nothing about survey commands in there, but there's a lot of stuff. Since you guys are surveyors, I think this book was probably written by engineers. So engineers will deal with a lot of this stuff. Okay, so there's a whole subset of the survey stuff in there. So we'll go into that, and we'll be dealing with a lab over that section. Then we'll get into parcels. He's got a nice chapter on parcels. It's chapter 8, then lab 8, surfaces and volumes, chapter 3 and 4. Okay, that'll be a lab. We're going to do alignments, and we're going to do profiles, and then hopefully we'll do a little grading. So you're gonna cover a whole lot of things in Civil 3D. I mean, not totally extensively, but enough to, once you get done with this, you should be able to take and do anything you need to and be able to move out. There's other sections in the book that we're not covering, but we're covering a big chunk of it. Okay, so there's a whole section on corridors. When you take route surveying, we'll go on corridors a little bit and that kind of stuff. So that should take us into this 15th week. That will be our final test. The actual last day of the term is a Monday, which is May 3rd. And I decided, well, we'll do the test on that Wednesday and we'll be done. So, but if for some reason, we push it out, I mean, things can change. It's a little more flux. Okay. Planning to do it this way. It's still developing all these problems yet, so I've got a lot to deal with. So, okay. So that's kind of our roadmap. Okay. Keep this handy. And it's out there on the webpage for you, or our Blackboard site rather. If you ever lose it, you can always print out a copy of it. And then of course it has all the other stuff associated with this is a suggested due dates right now for me. I'm hoping that we can kind of work with that, but I don't know because I haven't done any of these yet. So basically we're looking at a whole week for each lab, which is probably sufficient. But we'll see. I mean, again, I'm going to give you, this is the first time through with this. It's nice that it's a small class too, so that I think we can really dig into this. We'll see how it works, okay? So I'm not going to be real sticky about these due dates, but if you haven't turned in the first lab, and we're in the 5th week, that's going to be a problem, okay? So you don't want to do that, certainly, okay? But, and I don't usually do late points or anything like that, but, I just want everybody to get them done so that I can grade them. biggest deal. And this says late labs will not be accepted, but that's not necessarily true. So just so you know. Okay. Especially if we're having problems, like I said, because this is going to be different for everybody. Okay. So a different way of looking at things. All right. The rest of this information, dealing with no-show, withdrawal, that kind of stuff, I don't think that's going to be an issue for anybody. But you know, it's all out there if you need anything, disability services. You know, particular numbers, that kind of stuff. So, okay. Any questions anybody has on that right now? Is everybody okay pretty much with that? Okay. Then let me take attendance real quick. I'm going to pass out something. I'm going to take attendance and then we'll get started. And the idea today is very basic stuff. Like I said, I would assume that a lot of you guys already know this stuff. And let me do the attendance real quick. Let's see. Okay, is everybody launching okay? All right, so let me go ahead and so we're going to talk about these commands that, and before I do that, is there any questions anybody has about AutoCAD in general? Yes, pretty much mostly are users, right? Of it. So, I'm sure. Is that a true statement?
Just last semester.
Just last semester. Okay. So.
Like I used the AutoCAD.
Which one is it?
AutoCAD.
Mm-hmm.
Like AutoCAD for.
Okay. Well, are there any questions that you have relevant to anything? Anyway. Okay. So if there are, if they creep up, you know, let me know. So we'll talk about them because you're only going to be as good in Civil 3D as you are in AutoCAD. Okay. So if you understand AutoCAD very fluently, once we get into Civil 3D, it becomes a lot easier. So if you're struggling with AutoCAD stuff, you're going to struggle more in Civil. Okay, so that's kind of an important principle. So we're going to talk about annotation today, and this type is what we call text annotations. So there's several commands here we're going to look at. The text command, which is a text creation command. Okay? So it's what they call single line text. And then we have what drives the look of text is this guy called style. Okay? So now styles are going to be incredibly important and incredibly diverse when we get into Civil 3D. Everything is style driven. That's going to be a kind of a pain in the neck at first until you understand it. But this is kind of your introduction to how styles work in some respects. Okay? So a style will drive how this text looks. This text is a different type of text. It's called multi-line text. Okay? That's what's in text. Now, it can be style driven or not. So it has more flexibility. Multi-line text is more like a word processor. You can do things like bold, italicize within the document. Okay. Whereas with this type of text, you can't. So this is an older style type of text in AutoCAD. For simplistic labeling, though, this is a lot easier to use than this. Okay. Everything pretty much that happens in Civil 3D, though, is a multi-line text object or an in-text object. So that's important to understand because there is that distinction. Okay. So we're going to look at both of those. If you want to edit the text, there's this command. The old command was called ddEdit. The new command is called TextEdit, and they're the same command. They're just different names. So if you type in ddEdit or TextEdit, they're the same command. So these are synonyms. in the old AutoCAD, if you had a command that had DE in front of it, that stood for dynamic dialog box. So that would tell you, it would pull up a dialog box. The DD still works, okay? Except they don't use as many dialog boxes as they used to. So they've kind of gotten away from that interface. Okay? So I'm kind of old school. I've been using CAD for 30 years. So I know some of these older names. So this is the new name for it though, text edit. Okay. So there's a spell checker within AutoCAD, which does exactly what it says it will do. And it's a nice thing to use because, you know, if you're like me, I misspell things all the time. I think engineers in general are kind of notorious for that. So, you know, I always tell everybody, you know, last thing you do before you print, always do a spell check, and I never listen to myself. So what happens is I get, you know, I'll print it out and damn, there's a misspelled word. So I got to go redo it and fix it. So this is really painless. It works well. QText. This is a little way of visualizing your text in what's called quick text look. What it does is it changes all of the text in your drawing to rectangles. And the reason is because text is more of an intensive object. So back in the original days of AutoCAD, when you were utilizing it, having text, a lot of text on a drawing slowed it down. The processors weren't great, you know, the way everything was displayed and all of that. So you could QText it. And we'll see how that works. And then there's this other little system variable called text fill, which is pretty cool. And what that'll do is give your text hollow shell look. So it just has the outline and it gets rid of the fills. So I'll show you how that works. Now that one's a little nasty one because if you turn that thing on, you never see it that way on the screen. The only thing that sees it is the printer. So unfortunately, you can have that on all the time and never know it. So you got to be careful with that little guy. Okay. So is some of this new for you guys? Hopefully, or you guys all know this pretty much. Some of it's new. Good. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do is go through these, and then I'm going to have you guys build some title blocks that we're going to use over the next couple of weeks. I might even use them in Civil 3D. So it's not just an exercise, but one of it's an exercise in learning how to use text a little bit, and also learning how to deal with placing it properly, okay? Because there's a lot of really cool placement tools that a lot of people just don't use. Okay, so let's start out with that handout sheet that I gave you that shows you this thing called text alignment positions. Okay, so here's the thing to understand about this. A lot of people don't, and it sure kind of makes a difference when you deal with text sometimes. Text, you can kind of think of it, it exists on lines, okay, more or less, it's lined up. And we have what's called a baseline that runs, that's what your text is sitting on, that's called your baseline. Okay? And then the top characters go to a line up here, which is called your top line. Okay? So halfway between the top line and the baseline will be this guy called a middle line. And text height in AutoCAD is defined as the distance from the baseline to the top line. So that's not the way text is typically spec'd out when it comes to heights. Because if you use a Word document or Excel or something like that, they don't use text heights, right? What do they use? You know, points, which was comes from an old printing concept back in whenever. And 1 point was approximately 1/72 of an inch. So there is a correlation there. But we're working heights in units. So this could either be in inches, or it could be in feet, or it could be in meters, whatever you're using, okay? Whatever your unit is. They don't have a way to correlate points. I wish they did. But sometime, at some point, I think they will. All right, so the other thing that you have is certain types of fonts will have pieces of the font that will go below the baseline. This is called a descender. And if you do have a descender, then it will go down to this thing called the bottom line. Okay? So not all fonts support descenders. Okay? So some fonts don't. And if that's true, then the bottom line collapses up into the baseline. Okay, there is no bottom line, essentially, in other words. Okay. But most of your fonts that you'll probably ever deal with would have a descender, or could potentially have a descender. So you have this thing called a bottom line. So you have these three major lines, and then this one. Okay. You also then have the size of the characters. Okay. So from the left side to the right side, this is basically the total distance of that string. Now, that could be one character. It could be an entire sentence. Okay. So the distance here is dependent on how many characters you have here. Okay? And the center is always equidistant between the left side and the right side. Okay. So what this all is important with is when we place that text, there's what we call a justification point that is occurring. So if you're used to Word, most of you are, you have three justifications: left, right, and center. Right. So this is left justification, right justification, right justification, and center justification. Okay. But AutoCAD decided, no, you need a bunch more justifications because you might want to line text up, which is actually pretty cool. So where a red line crosses a purple line, you get a justification, potentially. So this one is here. This is called top left, top center, top right. This is left, center, right. Bottom left, bottom center, bottom right. Middle left, middle center, middle right, and then that one's just called middle. Okay. So each one of those is a potential justification point that you can use to bring your text in with. Now you won't use all of them. There's some I've never used, but sometimes I want to line stuff up. I use that one a lot. I use that one. I use that one. So these are good. These are good to have. When you create the piece of text, you only can come in with one of them. Okay. But that can be moved after the fact. So if you create a piece of text that's left justified and you want it right justified, you can go into the properties of the text and change it. Okay? So you have all those abilities. We also have two other ones that I'm not showing you there. One's called fit and the other one's called line. So we don't worry about those because those aren't going to be very good for engineering purposes. Because we always like to have a fixed height. That's important. You always want to deal with it. And when you use a line and fit, you don't get that. It kind of just makes it whatever it wants it to. So those are more for artistic types of stuff. So when you place a piece of text, either this kind or this kind, one of the things it's going to ask you is this thing called a justification. Okay. Now, that's where justifications work really well with text objects. But within text objects, the whole document is justified that way, so it's really kinky to use. So that's why I say if you're just placing simple labeling, this tends to be a lot easier to deal with than this. So the other thing that we're going to see with text is what's called the rotation angle of the text. The rotation angle is based on your baseline. Okay. So for instance, if your baseline, these are dead. So your baseline is parallel with your x-axis, and that's called a zero rotation. So we would have like A, B, C. If your baseline is this way, let's say 45 degrees, then our text is going to run like that. Okay? So that would be particularly important for guys like us if we are like we lines all over the place on, like, say, a flat, you know, and you want to put a road name that's parallel with some monkey bear, right? If we know this angle, then we can make a parallel with it really nicely. Okay? Sometimes finding that angle out is pretty hard. There's some little tricks you can use to get that angle for you. So I'll show you some of those as we get into it. Okay? Any questions? Okay. So when you place text, basically it's going to ask you justification, height, rotation. M-text will not do that typically. Okay? It just comes in a little box, and you can change it after the fact. So you have more edits you can do like you can with a word processor. This is a little bit more limited. All right, so let's go in and let's do this real quick. Let me go back over to my computer screen. I'm gonna open up my AutoCAD file. Let's go ahead and just open up a drawing. Don't worry about it. So where we find text here is primarily two locations. If you're at the Home tab with a ribbon under the annotation section, and this is a small annotation section, you'll see text there. If you open that up, you'll see there's actually two commands there. Multi-line text, which is M-text, and this other one, which is called single line text, which is the text command. Now notice when you bring this out, if you're not familiar with that, the actual name of the command is here. This is not the actual name of the command. Okay. This is the actual name of the command. Okay. So it's text. Or you could also type in dtext, because there used to be a command called dynamic text. So there's another older style, it's called dtext. You'll never see that, but if you type it in, dtext will actually equal that. Okay. All right, the other thing you'll see under this annotation section, if we open up this little drop down, here's your styles. Text style, dimension style, multi-leader style. We're going to be talking about these guys, but if you open up the text style box like that, this is going to show you how you can create your text styles, which we'll get here to in a minute. Okay. All right. You can just close that. Then if you go to the Annotate tab, you basically have the same stuff, but you're going to get a lot more information. Okay, so if you're doing a lot of types of annotation, you might want to go over here, but you notice there's text things here, there's multi-line, there's other kind of things that we get into. But for the simple stuff we're going to do, we can just go ahead and go to the Home tab. Okay. So let's go. We're going to just grab a text object. Now we're going to make sure you do a single line text here. So I'm going to go single line text. And notice that it's asking you right now to specify a point. What it wants you to do is pick a point where the baseline is going to be. But it also needs to know what kind of justification that is. So by default, the justification is left. If you don't want left, you type in the name of the justification that you want. TL for the top left, or BC for bottom center. If you're not sure, you can hit the word justify there. You can just click on the word justify, and it'll take you to a list of what you want. So for instance, if we wanted middle center, we would grab MC, okay? So then you just pick the point, X, Y, Z, and you'll get this. It should then ask you for a height. Now, it may not ask you for a height. That depends on what your style is set to. And in general, I like it to ask me for a height because that way I can bring in what I want. So right now it's saying my current height setting is 0.2 inches. I'm going to beef that up. I'm going to make that 0.25. And then it wants to know the rotation angle. Remember, that's the rotation angle of the baseline. So at 0, it's going to go this way. Okay? All right, so we're going to go ahead and just accept the default of 0. So you now should get an I-beam in here. Whenever you see an I-beam, that means you can type. So what's going to happen now, the keyboard's going to act a little differently because when you have a normal AutoCAD, when you hit the space bar, it doesn't look like a space bar, it works like an enter key. But now it will work like a space bar. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're just going to type our name. And then after you type your name, just hit enter. And we will say SUR 120 and then hit enter. And then civil 3D. And then hit enter and enter again. Okay. So how many objects do you have? 3. Because each line is its own object. So we have object 1, object 2, object 3. Now, if we had done this as an M-text object, it would be 1 object. Okay. So there's a big difference there. If you click on any of these, you'll notice you'll get not only that one highlights. Only that one highlights. You also get these blue boxes. Anybody know what these are called? Those are going to be very important in auto civil 3Ds too. Anybody knows what those are called? They're called grips. So grips are going to be editing tools. Okay. You notice the grip you're getting here? That's your actual justification point. With text, you always get a left justified grip as well. Okay. But this is the actual justification point that this piece of text is based on. That grip. Okay. Why those are important is they're editing tools, but also I can snap to text using an O snap. Does anybody know this snap that you can use to snap the text? The justification point? This is a good one to know. The insert O snap. So this will snap to a text justification point. So if you have a piece of text and you want to align this up underneath this, you can snap a line to that point using insert and then bring the line down so that everything's in this point. Again, it's a little bit more easy to use with single line text than it is with multiple line text. Okay. All right, any questions so far? Okay. So let's take a look at this text. This text should be, you can go ahead and hit the escape key. That'll deselect your text. A text looks a certain way. It's being driven by the style. Does anybody recognize that style? That font? It's very common when it's called Arial. Okay. So AutoCAD has a style in place that's defaulted to, it's called standard, and it has a font that it's using, which is Arial. So we can go ahead and create as many styles as we want. Or we can use just straight fonts. But if you're using this type of text, it is always driven by a style. So this text will be driven by that style. Okay? So we're going to take a look at the style command now. Because you need to know how to edit styles and or create them. Because we don't always want to use that one. All right, so style, you can type in the word style anytime. It'll pop that box up. Or you can get it from the annotation, drop that down. Okay, so whatever's convenient. Click here, go to style. And this is the style properties dialog box. So what you have, any styles that exist in this drawing are in this list right here. So there's a template in AutoCAD that creates all these settings, so when you open up a new drawing, it actually loads the template. And the template has these styles in it. There's one called annotated, and there's one called standard. So notice standard is the current style. And these guys are called style properties. Okay. So if we start over here with font name, well, first of all, this name is just a name. It doesn't mean anything. But when I create styles, I like to create my style name based on what my font is. Because if I just call it style 1, 2, 3, I don't know what style 2 is. But if I call it Times, I know it's probably Times New Roman or Simplex or something like that. Okay, so I like to do that, but you don't have to. So this style is just called standard. And it's nice down here. It shows me an image style of what's happening here. So the first thing, this is the most important thing probably, that's your font. And AutoCAD can use several different types of fonts. Okay? If we open up that list, you'll notice this is the same basic list that you see in Word because it's using those types of fonts. Those fonts have a TT in front of them, and that stands for True Type. So AutoCAD can read True Type fonts, which were created, I think, originally from the Adobe. And then those have been pretty much adopted by Word and Windows, and everybody uses them now. In the original days of AutoCAD, they could not read True Type fonts, so they had their own proprietary fonts. So when I first started using AutoCAD in Release 9, there was no such thing as a True Type for them. And then later on, at about Release 12, they could read these files called PDF files, PostScript files, which pretty much no longer exist. And then later on, then they incorporated in the True Types. You can still get drawings from people that were created back in the day with PostScript fonts. And you'll open up that drawing and it'll say, can't find this file, so I'm substituting this. Can't find this PDF, so I'm, if you ever get that message, that's because they were using that. So True Types are somewhat new in AutoCAD. When I say new, they've been there probably 15 years. But prior to that, they had what were called shape files. So we can still use shape files in AutoCAD. And shape files come in one of two formats. They will either have a .shx extension or a .shp. So there's no difference in the two, other than one is considered compiled, which you can't edit, and the other one is editable. Okay. So the SHP you can edit. These, by the way, I think are TTF files. It's called a TTF. Okay. All right. So what we see mostly here are TTs. So these are True Types. But if you scroll down through here, you're going to get a different look there. If we go down to, let's say, go to Gothic. Find one called Gothic. There's Gothic E and Gothic G and Gothic I. You notice that little symbol in front of that? Those are shape files. Okay. So those are shape files. Those are proprietary AutoCAD files. Word couldn't read them, or any other program couldn't read them, but AutoCAD can. So you can have both types. And these are kind of cool because they're different. They're really complex little guys. They're actually composed of a bunch of little vectors. They're also not filled in. Okay? Even if they look filled in, they're really not filled. Where the True Types are filled. Okay, so that's the difference. All right, so that's the font name. Font style. If you have a True Type font, then you'll have font styles, and you can have regular, bold, italic, bold, italic. If you're using a shape file, this will gray out because it will not recognize that. Okay? All right. Height. This is really important. This is what's called a fixed height indicator. Notice it's set to 0. That is your best way of doing it, because what that says is prompt the user for the height always. If you put a value in there, 0.2, it won't ask you. And then it's always going to come in at 0.2. And that might work most of the time, and then all of a sudden it doesn't work for you. And then it shoots you in the foot. And it will shoot you in the foot when you use dimensioning and multi-liters. So I'm going to suggest, you never use anything other than 0, because that gives you all the flexibility that you need. But if you lock that in, then you're set. Okay? width factor. This is a height to width ratio kind of thing. So you can think that it's set 1 to 1 right now. If this is the height and this is the width of a piece of text, and that, you know, we're looking at a character like say A, what this does is specs out how that looks. Okay. So go ahead, if you will, type in 2, and you'll notice what it did here in the image style. It made it 2 to 1. Okay. If you go 0.5, it goes the other way. So it's truly a ratio. So now it's higher by 2, 1 this way. Okay. So unless you're using that for some effect, I would just say leave it 1 to 1. Okay, because that's the way the font's developed. But again, you can always change that. By the way, you can always change this stuff after the fact. All right, so that's kind of cool too. So we would typically leave that to 1. Obliquing angle is if you have a letter like T, what that does is slants it. So this is unusual for AutoCAD, but this is where 0 obliquing is. So if you go this way with a positive oblique, your letter would look like this. If you go this way with a negative oblique, your letter would look like that. Technically, if you gave it 90 degrees, what would happen to that letter? Slam it shut, right? But it won't let you do that. So there are maximum values for each font. But for instance, if we type in there, just type in like say 50 degrees, you'll notice it slants at 50 degrees. If you type in 75, well, let me take 70 and 80, so it goes pretty tight. Okay. So now italicizing looks like it's kind of slanted, but it'll tell you a 0 oblique. So that's built into the way the font is. So that's not the same thing. Okay. But it can give you that italicized look. Again, unless you're looking for some kind of thing, I would normally leave my obliquing to 0. Okay. And then some fonts will accept this thing called upside down or backwards, so you can mirror it. And some even does vertical. Notice this font doesn't accept vertical. Anything that's grayed out means it won't work with that font. Okay. All right, so we're gonna create a couple of styles here. So when you create a style, go to the New button. It creates this little sub-dialog box. Now, it'll automatically just call it style 1, style 2, style 3. This is where you give it a name. I don't really care. Let's just go ahead. We'll call it style 1. Just hit OK. So what we need to do now is go to a font. Let's grab one called Simplex. And this is going to be, this is one I use a lot for engineering purposes. It's a real straight block letter. Very, very nice for little simple stuff. Should look like that. Notice it is a shape file. That grays out. So unless we're doing something else, we're going to leave this all alone. So a lot of people think they've created the style at this point. You haven't. Okay. What you have to do is make sure you hit the apply button after you make the changes. So once you do that, notice when I hit the apply button, it actually grays out. That means that one is actually created now properly. Okay. All right, so we created style 1. Let's do one more. Let's go to New, style 2. Let's create one called Times New Roman. Times New Roman. And let's make this one italicized. We're going to accept all the other defaults, but then we have to do what's called apply. Okay? And now you can go ahead and hit close this box. So you've done 2 things. Created 2 styles. And you've also made the last style you created current, whether you knew it or not. So if we open up this annotation box here now, notice style 2 is current, because that was the last one that was created. But if you open up this little drop down, you'll see, oh, well, I got all my other styles in there. I can just grab one of these. So if I want one of the other ones it shows me, which is kind of nice, gives me a little image of those.
and then I can grab them, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and we'll place another piece of text now right next to this other one. We're gonna go ahead and do another text, single line. I'm just gonna put it right next to it. Same height, same rotation, but notice this time, of course, it's different, okay? And you don't have to do the same thing. You just want to maybe do 2 lines or something, that's cool. Okay? So that's how that works. So if you want to do some edits on text, there's some pretty cool ways. One is to use this DD edit. So all you have to do to edit a piece of text is double click it. If I come in here and double click it, it'll highlight like this. Notice what it actually launched for me is what was called text edit. You can also type in the word DD edit. Now, with single line text, the only thing you can change is the contents of the text. Can't change height, can't change rotation, can't change font, I can't change any of that. When we get to multi-line text, M-text, when you DD edit it, it'll let you change everything. Because it's like, it truly is like a word processor. But here, if I want to just say, oh, I want to make that Jim instead of James Decker, I would just come in here and change it to Jim and then hit enter twice and I'm done. Okay. But I can't change font, layer, any of that stuff. Okay. Does that work? Now, if you do want to change some of this, here's another little tool we can use. Let's go ahead and select all of this text right here. And then right click it, and we go to properties at the bottom. So notice when we open the properties dialog box, all kinds of things in here that we can deal with. And primarily, here's your text things. We can change contents. We can change styles. So if we want to grab style 2 and make it style 1, we can do it. We can change the height to 0.2. We can change the width factor, the obliquing, all of that kind of stuff. Okay. You can also, and this is important, the text alignment. Let's see, where's that? You should have a way. Oh, there it is. Justify the justification point. If you don't want it to be middle center, but you want it to say be middle, or you want it to be left, I can change it. So I can go in here and I can say left justified, find left justified. Bang, that's now left justified. Okay. And when you get done, you close that box and hit escape. So, properties is one of your ultimate tools. Okay. Properties is one of your ultimate tools when you get into a lot of things like that. And Civil 3D, by the way. Okay. Everybody see how this works? No problem? Cool. Well, let's take a look at M-text. So let's contrast that with M-text. M-text is going to work basically in a space. You can think of it like a document. So when we go to M-text, this gives this symbol right here. I usually just pick a point and pick another point to open up a window. Okay. Now you're in what's called the M-text editor. Notice this right now, your ribbon has changed totally. This is called a context-sensitive editing tab. And so while you're working within this tab will be in effect. And when you're done with it, you just close it. Okay. So we're going to type in. Let's type in the same thing we had before. Let's see, James Decker. And I'm going to hit enter. SUR. Don't worry about the size right now because we can change that after the fact. So when you're done with this, just hit the green check up here. So notice, does everybody get that in? So notice, first of all, when you click on this, it's all one object. Also, this is limited by a bounding box, essentially. So if I want to make this bigger so I can fit the word Decker, I can just take this grip right here and drag it like that. Okay, or I can drag this one up. I can drag it down. So what that does is kind of sizes. It's kind of like your margins are on in a Word document. Okay. Notice also this is all left justified. We're going to double click on this. Go back into the editor. So basically, when you double click, you're using text edit again. But notice what it takes you to here. So this gets really cool now because what this does is allows me to change things independently. So, for instance, if I want to change, let's say, my name here, I highlight my name, I come over here, and instead of using a style, I can actually go in this box and I can grab a font that overwrites a style. So remember I told you initially styles are not important. I can grab the Arial font there, okay? I can come and make this guy bold. I can't do that kind of stuff with single line text. Okay, I can't do that as easily. So that's really, really a neat feature. You guys see how that works? You can underscore, you can do all kinds of stuff. Literally, you can do pretty much anything you want to do, like a word processor. When they first brought this out, they actually touted it like it was a word processor, and it was a piece of junk. And you couldn't do anything with it. But now they fixed it, so you can do bulleting, you can do all the good stuff. So MText is really important. The reason I do want to explain this is because a lot of the labeling in Civil 3D is an MText object. Okay? And all your dimensioning is MText objects. So it's important to understand what you're doing here. But if you're just placing a single piece of text, sometimes single line text is a lot simpler. Okay? Let's see, kind of get the idea? And single line text is always driven by a style. Okay? Where MText can use a style, but you don't have to use a style. Because I can go and grab a font separate from a style. Well, I can just do that on the fly. Okay? So there's a really other cool thing you can do. You could paste a Word document into AutoCAD into an MText window, and it becomes an MText object. So, I mean, you can take an, well, let me do it real quick. Let me see if I can find something here real quick for you. Just show you, because this is also good to know how to use. Let me see if I can find a document. See if I can grab something here. Okay, let's see. Okay, so here's a Word document that I created a while ago. So this was like last year's, actually it's longer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go grab this. This is just, I'm opening up Word, and I'm going to right click and paste this to the clipboard. It's not going to let me do it. Oh, paste it. All right, why is that not letting me do that? Copy. Okay, so I'm copying it to the clipboard, and then I can come over here and I can open up a MText multi-line text dialog box, and I can right click in here, and there's a paste, and notice there's my document. Now the beauty is that it's now an MText document. Now I want to show you something. Yeah. notice the difference? This is a case of what's called an OLay object. I can't edit this in AutoCAD. I can click on it and it'll open up Word and it'll let me open it, but it won't let me edit it. But this is actually an AutoCAD object. So the difference is when I paste this kind of stuff in here, I don't have really any clue how high stuff is or whatever, but here I can change that all up. Okay, so there's a huge difference. Does everybody see the difference? So this is called an OLay object. Object link and embedding is what that stands for. This is an actual AutoCAD object that is now in an MText box, which means I can edit this guy. If I want to come in here and edit that, I got it. Okay. Right. Any questions? Anybody gonna ask me the maybe obvious question? Is it possible to turn one object into another type of object? What do you think about that? Can I take an MText object and turn it into a single line text object? Or can I take single line text and turn them into MText? Okay. Well, the answer is yes. You can do that. I can take, let's go to the object that we just created over here. This is an MText object. Go ahead and select on it. Notice it's an MText object. Just hit the X key and hit enter. Does anybody know what X means? No, okay. Explode. Okay, there's a command up here called explode. All right. We exploded that. So when we exploded it, it drops down from a higher type of object to a lower type of object. So what it went is from an MText. If you click on this now, you notice these are now single line pieces of text. Single line pieces of text. They're all separate. Okay. So we can go the other way, but you have to go to this guy called Express Tools. So you have to go up here to the Express Tools tab. There's a whole text section. And you'll notice there's a convert to MText. So if you convert to MText, you select those guys and then hit enter, and it brings them in as MText. It doesn't always do it perfectly, by the way. So sometimes it changed that stuff up. It changed some of my stuff up that I had there. Sometimes it'll rearrange stuff, so you gotta be careful. It's not perfect, but it does work. It definitely works. Okay, any questions? Okay, pretty cool, right? All right, so we're gonna look at these guys that have to do with like little, what I call utilities. The first one is the spell checker. Okay. So like I said, spelling is very important. So if you just go in and type in the word spell and hit enter, it'll ask you what you want to spell. So normally I just do the entire drawing, but you can also go out and select, so you're just looking at certain things. So once you do that, then you just hit start. And it's just like the spell checker is in Windows. I think it actually uses the Windows spell checker. So it'll show you something it found and said, hey, it's not, what do you want to change it to? And you can always just ignore and ignore all. I mean, you can just do that, but it'll go through and do that stuff for you. Ignore it. So you can just go through there. It's a good idea though. And then once you do it, if you make changes, it'll do that. Also, after you do that, you always do a save, okay? Because it's possible that you may not save things again. Okay? Is that good then? All right, let's zoom up. I want you to show you something. I'm gonna move this stuff out so I can show you guys a little bit better together. I'm gonna get rid of that object. Okay, so we're gonna look at what QText does. Okay, so QText stands for quick text. And I have on your handout, if you notice on the second sheet of that, it shows you at the top, second sheet, it shows you true type fonts versus the shape files. And it shows you what TextFill does, and it shows you what QText does. So QText affects all text equally, whether it's a shape file or it's a true type font. So if we just type in the word QText, and we hit enter, notice currently Q text is turned off. Okay.
That's getting too bad. I was gonna say.
Yeah, yes, just go ahead and you can do this and just kind of go those out. I just noticed that we're still getting pretty intense in this. Is that better? Okay. Okay, cool. All right. So type in Q text, and then we're going to turn Q text on. So you just click on the word on or type in the word on. Anything happen? No. So what you have to do is force a regen. Anybody remember how to do a regeneration? Or RE is even easier, right? So just type in RE and hit enter. What happened to your text? Whoa, where'd it go? It's Q text. So what it's showing you is a placeholder for that text. So that allows you to not have to deal with the text, but I don't want to draw through it. So as I'm drawing other objects, it just saves that time. Now, this is, remember this, AutoCAD is what they call WYSIWYG. When it plots, what you see is what you get. If we plot this document Q-texted, that's what we're going to get on the document. Okay? So if you don't want that to show up on your document, you have to un-Q-text it. So we would go back into Q-text, turn it off, we have to regen it, and we're back in business. Okay? Most people don't use that. A lot of people don't even know that exists. Because it probably isn't as important as in the older days when you had stuff to deal with, right? All right, so text fill. Text fill is a really cool little device, a little setting. And on the top of this, it shows you the word Cincinnati State, which is a true type font. It shows you what it looks like with the fill on and with the fill off. But notice at the bottom where it says text fill for the shape files, it doesn't affect them. And the weird thing is it only shows up on the printer. So we're going to go into the text fill variable. And because this isn't really a command, it's what they call a system variable. It's not asking you yes or no or on or off. It's asking you from a binary standpoint. 1 in binary is on, 0 is off. So what we're going to do is set this to 0 and hit enter. Do a regen. Anything happen? Nothing happened, did it? Right? Okay, so we're going to go to the plotter. Go to your printer. I don't know if it's going to work with a printer here. Let's see if I can find. I'm going to just see if you can grab that printer 445. That should be working in here, but for some reason it doesn't seem to be. Go to letter. Go to extents. Center it and preview it. And what do you notice about your text? It's not filled in. So that's what text fill does. And notice if you have other types of text out there, like I have this piece of text, this is a shape file, doesn't affect it at all. It only affects the true type fonts. So I got some that's Arial, some that's Times New Roman. This little variable is nasty because once you turn it off, it stays off forever. Okay? It has nothing to do with the drawing. So whether you save the drawing like this or not, it has to do with the system. So if you don't turn this back to a text fill of on, it'll stay off forever. And like I said, it doesn't show up on the screen that way. Okay? So, you know, it's not that huge of a deal, but some people will use that sometimes for different purposes. The other thing is too, it's across the board. So I can't have some text filled and some not. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and cancel out of there. Let's go back into the text fill system variable and set it back to 1. Okay? Because we don't want to mess that up. Okay. that's another one a lot of people don't know about. That's a good one to know. Yeah. All right, any questions? All right. So that's good. So that's lecture. So let's get ahead. Let's go ahead and get started on the lab material. I'll get you guys started. And mine, hopefully, I'm thinking some of us might be able to get this done today. Otherwise, I would suggest that we want to have this by next week for sure. In fact, if you can do it by Monday, you can submit it to me via email. So everything that you're going to do for me typically will be printing out, but we'll also be plotting it as well. Okay, so, and when you are sending me the digital file, so you'll send me the digital file. And then I'd like to get a printer, but printed copy, but you know, depends on when we get them done. So we're going to build 2 title blocks, okay? Primarily utilizing this concept of the text type of things, and I want you to get used to placements. So if you go to the last page, it'll show you we're going to build 2 title blocks here. What I'm calling an A size title block and a B size. Now we're going to be using the B size the most. So it's going to have an external border, a bunch of line work here, and then we're going to have text. And there's different types of text. Placement's going to be critical. I've got this little symbol here that we're going to pop in as a block. We're going to pull that in. You don't have to draw that. We're going to draw this drawing first. We're going to make a copy of that, and we're going to edit that. So the first drawing, the A size will take the longest, and then the B size is just, you're going to do some edits. We're going to increase the size this way, increase the size this way. This piece of the title block is exactly the same. So the only thing we'll do is we'll move it into position and reposition this stuff. Okay. So let's look at the rundown. So this is primarily just dealing with layers and text. I just want you to get used to this, and also standards kind of things, because you know, a lot of things you'll be dealing with. It's one thing. Civil 3D is going to force a lot of standards on you. So we're going to build an A-size paper, which we're going to use a limitation of 1010 by 775, and the reason is because the printer can't print all the way out. So this is what you would call the hard clip values of that thing. And so for the B size, which is 11 by 17, we're going to use 1625 by 1010. So it tells you to start by setting your units up to decimal. They should already be decimal. So if you begin a brand new drawing, you don't have to really mess with any of this. This is really not that important either. If you don't want to set your limits up, I wouldn't worry about it. But it's nice if you do it this way. Then when you force a zoom all, it's going to be right in there. Okay. So you're going to create some objects here. So you need to go out and create 3 layers: a border layer, a text layer, and a logo layer. So you get white, red, and green. And we're going to not load line types, so everything will be continuous. Nothing should be on the 0 layer. Nothing should be on the 0 layer. Okay. So all your line work goes on the border layer, your text goes on the text layer, and your logo goes on the logo layer. And the logo, by the way, is both the symbol and this piece of text, since I state. So this is all on the logo layer right here. Okay. So even though that's text, it's going to be on the logo layer. Okay. So it should be green. Okay. Go out and then create the border. So basically, let's see, I've set those limits at 775, 1010. You don't have to draw it that way, but what that's going to do, it's going to have it like this. This is 0, 0. This upper right is going to be 775, 1010. Okay, and then what we're going to be doing is constructing that down here. I guess the easiest way, I mean, you got 2 ways to do it. You draw 4 lines, or you draw a rectangle. Okay, that's what I would suggest. One of the 2. Once you get that, then you're going to go and build all the information. So if we go to this first piece here, this is showing you your A-size title block. Okay, so now here's something to keep in mind too, and I'm real picky on this. So if you have this border already in, you don't want to draw this line there, because that line is going to go on top of the other line, and then you're going to have what's called a duplicate object. I don't want any duplicate objects. I'll be looking for that. But basically, you're just going to offset, 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 trim. You got that thing knocked down. All of this line work is on the border layer. Okay. Notice there's exact dimensions here. There's not a dimension given here, but it's implied. You have 4 spaces. This is 1 inch, so each one of these is going to be a quarter. Okay, right? For the logo needs to be exactly centered. The logo needs to be exactly centered. When you download this logo and insert it, you will have an insertion point right there. So you can float it around based on that. Okay. So that's an insertion point, just like a text insertion point, where you'll find a grip actually. Make sure that you place that exactly where I've got that. All of these placements are going to be critical because that's what I'm going to be looking at. I want to make sure you're placing things properly. Okay, is everybody with me on that? I'll show you how to bring this logo into in a second. Okay, so are you good on that? All right, so let's go to the next page. And it shows you a little bit more detail about the text. Okay. So let's see. All right, so let me draw on this. So each of those pieces of text is going to have a font associated with it. So you're going to create 3 styles. You'll create 3 styles. You're going to create 3 styles here, and I want these guys placed just perfectly as well. So you might be able to see them, but there's little X's in there. They're kind of hard to see, but those are text justification points that I'm showing you. They're kind of hard to see. But the bottom line is this. I want this word project centered in this box. Okay? So what you need to do is draw a construction line that you can snap to. So the easiest way, draw a diagonal line from there to there. The midpoint of that line will be the geometric center of that box. So this is suggesting that you use a middle justification. So if you snap a middle justification point to the midpoint of that line, it'll pop right in where it needs to be. Use a height of 0.25, type that in, and when you get done, you erase this line and nobody even knows it's there. Okay. Now, if you use MText, it won't line up perfectly. Use center or use single line text, it looks great. Okay? All right, everybody with me? Now, when you do these right here, these guys, this has got a point out here. It's kind of hard to see, but that's using a font called Roman V, and it's using a middle left, right? Middle left justification. So here's what I suggest you do. You offset this line half of the distance. So this is a quarter, so that would be an 1/8. And I don't have a distance here, but I'm going to suggest if you offset that line about 1/10 of an inch. Okay. Where those 2 lines cross, they now give you an intersection point that you can snap your justification point to. Do you see what I'm doing? I'm using these things to line them up, lining them up perfectly, and then I can undo that or just delete it when I get done. Okay? Now these guys right here, this is a different font. Same height, but you need to establish a line here. You're going to have, that's kind of a trial and error line. I'm not even sure what to tell you. Just make sure, just try that like, I don't know, 1 inch or so, and then just make sure my name fits. Okay, but I want these lined up this way. Okay, all right, you guys with me? This font and this font is the same. And these fonts and that font are the same. They look similar, but they're not. Okay, so pay attention to that, all right? And this font, this is simplex and simplex, Times New Roman, Times New Roman, Times New Roman, Roman D, and that's simplex and simplex. Okay. And of course, you're going to put your name in here. Okay, some people actually put your name. So make sure you put your name on. Okay. When you get done with that drawing, save it. Save it with your last name and whatever lab 1A. Okay, so save it your last name 1A. Then what you're going to do is make a copy of that. Okay, copy of it and do a save as and call it your name B. B. And what we're going to do with that, you're going to have this drawing here. All you're going to need to do is delete this line and delete this line, offset this up the distance it needs to go, offset this over the distance it needs to go, do a couple of extends. This guy gets picked up and moved over into the position, and then you'll move your logo here and your logo here. This one should literally take you about 5 minutes, maybe 10. Shouldn't take that long. Most of the work is in the A size, okay? And then you'll be able to do the B. I would think a lot of you might be able to get done today. All right, any questions? All right, let me show you something here. How to get that logo. I think I have to activate it yet, but let me go out to my Blackboard site a minute. Let's see, where is my Blackboard site? Okay. So under weeks here, week 1, there is this assignment 1 logo. If you just click on that, it'll download it like that. What you can do then is should be able to just bring it over here and dump it on your desktop. Oh, hold on a minute. You guys aren't seeing it, are you? Hold on, I'm sorry. Let me go back. Let's see. All right. Let's try this again. Make a lot more sense. All right. So let me do that again. So in my Blackboard site, under week 1, there's this thing that says assignment. It's not available yet. I'll make it available here in a minute. You just click on it. It'll download. Take that download and just paste it over here. It just should be able to drag it like that. Okay. In AutoCAD, then what you do is when you want to bring that in, you just type in I for insert. It'll give you this dialog box. You can go to current drawing tab. Up here in this little 3 symbols, go to that. It'll ask you where you want to find it. You would navigate to your desktop, find the file, hit open. Okay? That brings that into your palette. All right? Then when you click on that, you can just drag it into your drawing, and there it is. So when this guy's in there, by the way, don't explode him, okay? But there's the grip that you need to use to center it with. That grip right there, okay? That's your centering grip, all right? I'm not sure what those other grips are, but that's the one you want to use, okay? All right, any questions on that? You probably need some help. If you do, that's fine. It'll come in white, but if you put it on the logo layer, it should change green for you. So, but don't explode this thing. Okay? Don't explode it, because it'll become a mess. All right? Any questions? Okay, so the game plan today would be if we can get the A's and the B's done, cool. I'm going to see if I get that printer fixed. Okay? And, if you can get them done today, great. If not, try to work on them over the weekend and submit them on Monday. That would be perfect. And you know, but if we can get them in printed, that's great. don't hesitate to do a check print too. Sometimes you don't see mistakes on your drawing. Okay. All right. Okay, so go ahead and work. I'm going to try to get some stuff set up here. I'm going to stop the share.